Hey guys, my name is Mike Munzing with Munzing Mortgage Group. I've been a lender down here in South Orange County for about 25 years. A lot of you know me, and a lot of you have had me work with your buyers, which I so appreciate. Each week I try to bring these videos to you to cover what's going on in the mortgage industry and real estate as a whole, both in California as well as here in Orange County. Now this week, I'm only going to be doing just a little part of it because the last couple of days, Brian and Frank have done such a great job bringing you a market breakdown of what they're seeing going on right now. I'm going to be bringing them in just a moment, but for now, be sure to go over to my website at www.mikemunzing.com before your open houses this weekend and print up my rate sheet. Now, the bond market had a bit of a difficult week, was off a little bit, but the lenders were able to, in most cases, hold the rates level. They want to keep competitive. They want to help our buyers buy the most home they possibly can. And if those rates start jumping up, it's going to be even more tough. But be sure and bring that rate sheet to your open houses. Have your buyers give me a call. Give me a call. I'll be out this weekend hitting open houses. I may come see you if I can, and always have my phone number with you. Put it into your phone, 949-689-5626. Okay, now let's jump over to Brian and Frank's market update or current analysis of the market. I hope you enjoy.
We constantly find ourselves asking how far has the housing recovery come since the recession has seemingly ended, when we should be asking ourselves, what are we doing to adjust for the changes so we can find success? So let's look at the housing market and how far have we come? With home values, of course. Remember what seemed to be just a few years ago, we were talking about wealth lost during the recession? In fact, if you go look at the Roosevelt Institute, they say that we lost $34.4 trillion globally between the fall of '08 and the spring of '09. Part of that was home values. In fact, the United States, which was part of that, lost $15+ trillion in lost equity alone. Then again, if the equity was built upon a house of cards that was carefully stacked with unsustainable subprime loans and false ratings with securitization, then one could argue that our lost equity was no real equity at all in the first place, or at least part of it, meaning you can't take away something that you never really had.
But it felt real, and now much of that equity, it's returned. In fact, home values continue to grow in spite of the fact that our mortgage volume is at the same or possibly lower levels than the same period between 2008 and 2009, when we lost $15 trillion in housing value and $34 trillion in global wealth. Kind of scary.
In fact, according to an article by the Associated Press from March 7, 2013, which was a full year ago, we've regained $16 trillion in that lost equity. So depending on the metrics you're looking at, we've gained all or most of our lost equity back. So in spite of our great numbers we have right now, what remains the problem in housing?
Priced out of the market is one of the problems. In years past, we've relied on new home formations to be the seeds of our next generation home buyers. However, we currently have the lowest level of new home formations in generations, with more kids living at home than ever. The reason? Once again, priced out of the market.
Now, Frank and I said back in 2008 and 2009 that the housing market stunk if you were trying to sell a house. But in 2013, we said the housing market stunk if you were trying to buy that very same house, because it's all in the price. Let's face it, nobody would complain if, say, a 5 Series 2014 BMW was priced off the assembly line at $15,000, yet that's exactly what we did with home values back in 2008 and 9. From a consumer standpoint, however, that would have been great.
Now that BMW's up at $45,000, we rejoice, saying it's a triumph of the market, even though the new higher price priced us out of the market.
And yet with that analogy, that is precisely what has happened with our stated objectives with the housing market to regain our equity. And the consequences of that objective is we have simply priced qualified buyers right out of the market.
Now, with regard to existing home sales, even good markets are showing signs of fatigue. For example, Sacramento, California, one of the hottest markets in recent years, is now seeing listings sitting on the market for extended periods of time. You're not hearing about this now, but you will when the sales numbers and home values for the area are reflected in coming months as we have time to digest the data.
In short, it very well could be argued that we are feeling the consequences of our objectives and the success of those objectives of returning equity to homeowners. But we need to understand that those objectives of helping regain our equity, it's come at a steep cost to home buyers. A cost that right now appears to be too high for many in the market to purchase homes.
Additionally, investors are now pulling back. From 2008 to 2011, investors were the predominant driving force of the market. In fact, Warren Buffett said if he could manage it, he would invest in housing, and that if he were an average Joe, he'd buy a home as well.
But more staggering was the influence of foreign investors and investment firms within the United States borders who recognized the enormous opportunity in housing and bought homes like we buy toilet paper at Costco, a whole bunch at a time, and that helped sustain the housing recovery.
And now we've seen the byproduct of investors, both foreign and domestic, blossom in just the past few months with a newly created and newly minted rental-backed securities market. A new product, yes, a new market. Not really, though. It's the same blind, profit-driven thirst from the same group of Wall Street investors that are buying these high-risk, high-return securities.
A new risk? Well, that is cause for some debate, as rating agencies are rubber stamping these things AAA, yet we know with our hindsight 2020 eagle-like, courtesy of mortgage-backed securities from years past that failed, that regardless of ratings, these things have inherent risk, and we believe an even more significant risk as rental-backed securities are going to fail more than mortgage-backed securities because they're not backed with even the shakiest of fallback positions of at least the guy making the payment on the security has the belief that he owns the home.
So those investors that were buying homes who had a war chest and the vision to see a good opportunity, they bought, and they bought like crazy. But now, they're not.
And investors are not buying homes right now because the values of yesterday are no longer here today. In short, values are up and investors are gone. Values are up because our inventory is low.
And inventory is low for a multitude of reasons. We're going to get into that on part 2 of this series tomorrow.
So yesterday we posed the question, what is wrong with the housing market in spite of all the positive data that we had? But now we need to talk about what's at the foundation of the housing problem, not the people who can't buy the house, but the very fact that inventory, the houses to be sold, are no longer at levels in most major metropolitan areas for folks to buy in the first place. And that's for a number of reasons. And here's what they are. Some you'll know, and some that might be new to you.
Okay, first on the list, the obvious one is foreclosures are down. But what needs to be considered is the question of, is inventory low due to market conditions or market manipulation? The thinking is, if we're manipulating the market, then manipulation can only last so long. Example.
Think of all the loan modification, foreclosure abatement actions that have been handed down with a strong fist by those that benefit politically from such actions, our elected officials. We not only have a variety of HARP and TARP type of programs as implemented by the government, but we also have private modification programs from banks as a means of appeasing those same policymakers that are looking to curry favor with voters.
We've also seen a multitude of lawsuits from advocacy groups and even cities, as is the case recently with LA suing Chase. In fact, they even sued BofA and Wells Fargo and so on. But also Baltimore's in that mix, and Detroit, and the list goes on and on. We've seen lawsuits with MERS, which is the means of transferring title along with actual papers involved in title transfers with our beloved robo-signers of years past. In truth, the lawsuits, which seem to be a never-ending stream of paydays for everyone but the foreclosed homeowners, and headlines for those who seek them for personal benefit, have not seemed to diminish at all as we distance ourselves from these problems, but rather increase like a piranha feeding frenzy.
All of what Frank just spoke about is not the market acting on its own accord, but rather the manipulation of the market for an intended result, which we have. A lack of inventory. And this has led to those that should be foreclosed on staying in their homes for time periods that I think any sane person would even think is too long. Now, even if you had a foreclosure yourself, really, should anybody be able to stay in their house upwards of 3 years after they defaulted on a loan that they signed and agreed to pay on? Honestly, yet, here we are.
Inventory's also down because of the actions of new home builders. In fact, numbers show that at the height of the market, the McMansion years, new home builders were creating inventory at an alarming pace, around 2.3 million new homes per year.
And that level of 2.4 million homes per year, that pace was absolutely unsustainable if we were to have ever lost the subprime and Alt-A mortgage products that were fueling the new home creations. However, after the crash, new home builders, well, their profits and heck, for even some of them, their very existence, and most importantly, their home creations, their new homes, they simply disappeared. In fact, at one point in mid-2009, home builders were building homes at a dismal rate of around 400,000 per year. New homes became the pendulum that swung as far and as completely to the other side from a home surplus to a home shortage.
So the pullback on the home builders has had a direct effect on the lack of inventory that we find ourselves with today. Now, new home volume has finally gotten back to at least 1 million per year. Still, it's far below the pre-bust years, but improved nevertheless.
More importantly, though, is the actions of the home builders and how it affects the inventory for today and future markets. Home builders, like investors, have looked at the landscape of real estate, identified the fundamental difference between our market right now and all other markets that have preceded this market, and have acted accordingly. Meaning they've spent much of their time and resources in rental units rather than single-family homes for purchase. Now, this direction has led to and is going to continue to lead to more inventory issues for most major metropolitan markets.
Additionally, home builders sold off many of their lots and plans for future homes at bargain basement prices, just as a means of keeping the doors open. So those lots for future builds have to be repurchased by an industry that's coming off of its leanest years, which further makes buying these things for rental complexes more attractive than space-taking single-family homes.
So buyers are pulling back, not only because they don't believe they can get loans, but they believe they cannot afford the homes. Investors who in past years have identified the rental market are pulling back because home values are up. And new home builders who create our inventory for future years have also pulled back in favor of building rental complexes, as they see that as a more profitable track to follow. Of course, what we haven't talked about yet is interest rates. The same type of manipulation that we've seen in keeping people in homes, keeping buyers at bay, and hurting our inventory issues is also being applied to interest rates. And we're going to take a look at that in part 3 in our series this upcoming Monday.
Okay, I know that was a bit of a long breakdown, covered a couple of days, but a lot of great information. I tried to crop it together as best I could to get pure content in there for you, but I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got a lot of good information from that. Hey, we're heading into a gorgeous weekend. Call me once again, 949-689-5626. Save that in your phone so you've got my number with you all the time. That is my cell phone. Always have it with me. We'll have a fantastic weekend. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless this beautiful country. Let's work together. Let's help those buyers get into the homes that they fall in love with. Let's get them the most home they can get. And I look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Money, 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 money.